in some disappointing news, Tszyu and Mick Zerafa is off, and we may never see the fight happen for multiple reasons. About give or take about 6 hours or so, just as I was going to bed, about 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, depending, news came out that Michael Zerafa, 28-4 with 17 KOs, Michael Pretty Boy Zerafa, has pulled out of the fight. Just a couple of days ago, I just did a video. Actually, it was yesterday. We produced a video, me and my colleague Big J, about how excited we were that the fight was getting international exposure because ESPN Plus, the #1 sports streaming service here in the United States, has picked up the fight. It would have been at 5 a.m. or so Eastern Standard Time. The main event would have been over by now, and we would have had our post-fight video and possibly a live stream out, or finishing up a live stream. So now, before we get into the full details of why Mick Zerafa pulled out, Tszyu is going to be taking on, let me pull up his box rec here, 12-1 with 11 KOs, a guy by the name of Steve Sparks. Steve Spark. Looking at it, he has fought primarily at the 140-pound division. And as I'm looking at it, he's only had one fight, which was his last fight in April of 2021 against Jack Brubaker. And that was his first fight at 147 pounds. And now he's going to be fighting Tszyu, a junior middleweight, super welterweight at 154 pounds. I'm TstreeT Controversy. This is FightView360.com with Big J. Please subscribe. Take your time out, like the video. So, Big J, let's get into the details. Mick Zerafa did a video stream interview with, how do you pronounce it? Noonan Boy Promotions? Noonan Boy?
Yeah, Noonan Boy. Yeah, Noonan Boy. Yeah, Noonan Boy Promotions.
Yeah, so, I've got a chance to skim through it, and Big J has actually watched all of it. It's not, media content is an independent media company, so we can't show the content here. But basically, what's the gist of it, of why Michael Zerafa pulled out of the fight? Now, we've talked before we started recording, and to be honest, and to the fans, to the viewers, I was letting Big J know, the fans, especially in the social media generation, they are cold. And from what I'm gathering from it, it's all going to fall on Michael Zerafa, whether he had good reason to or not. But I'm going to let you take it away, Big J. So explain to us what happened.
Okay, well, the problem is at the moment it is for a COVID reason. They were saying that Zerafa's team was not happy with the COVID plan that No Limit presented them, and that they weren't getting confirmation from the Victorian government, which they could have found out by themselves, but they weren't getting confirmation that they could return. Going to Newcastle wasn't the problem. Their concern was if they came back to Newcastle on the chance that Newcastle went from a no COVID problem to an orange or even a red zone, which is spotting up all over the country at the moment. Within the last 24 hours, 2/3 of the country is shut down. 2/3 of the only states that are COVID-free are South Australia, Victoria and Tasmania. All the other states have lockdowns in some way, shape or form, and even including the Northern Territory, hasn't had cases for like 9 months. So their concern wasn't travelling to Newcastle, New South Wales wasn't the problem. It was returning back with no guarantee that they wouldn't have to spend 14 days in quarantine. Not a problem for Mick Zerafa, but for his team, who have other businesses and families and other commitments that they have to do. And after 4 lockdowns, because Victoria will lock itself down once someone sneezes, all right? We've had 4 lockdowns. Our first lockdown went for over 100 days. That's the longest in the entire world, all right? The Zerafa team couldn't risk that without a written guarantee saying, yes, you can return to Victoria and you do not need to quarantine for 14 days if something goes wrong. And it sounds like they weren't prepared to take that risk, which is it's a hypothetical, it's a very long shot, But considering that Sydney is only 2 hours away from Newcastle, I think it's about 150 kilometres, about 100 miles in American, you think that I see it from my point because I live in Victoria and I know how fast Victoria will shut down. Tszyu was supposed to come here for media this week, didn't show up. The AFL was bringing on a touch of irony, the AFL was bringing all the teams in from the other states to Victoria because Victoria is COVID safe at the moment. They tried to bring the fight here, and it sounded like the Zerafa team was giving all sorts of options, and No Limit wanted no bar of it. Like, nah, rock up, this is the date thing. They tried to postpone, and No Limit wanted no bar of it. We want to, postpone for 2 or 3 weeks. Nothing could be done, so they said, well, we've had these options. We can't seem to come to an agreement. We're withdrawing from the fight. And I see their point, but no one else on social media is going to give a rat's ass. As far as I'm concerned, Mick's just pulled out.
Yeah, especially since, as you said, it's hypothetical. Nothing's been locked down next. I mean, yeah. Now, I understand, they have businesses. If you don't know, trainers and cutmen and, God knows who's on Tim's team. They have families. They had lives. So, there was no guarantee. I understand there was no guarantee that, okay, well, if it's a lockdown, we'll be able to get back home. But things are not locked down right now. The fight is next week. No. Now, a week away from today, it was supposed to be.
That's true. But they're using the argument, and it has happened, that 2/3 of the country has been locked down in the last 48 hours.
Yeah, so logical.
Logical argument, still a fairly weak and a long shot argument, but still a logical one. And here's the other point, and I didn't think about this the other day, but it's hit me now. The crowd's gone down to 50%. They have to refund 50% of those ticket sales.
Yeah.
So how much money is that going to cost them?
Yeah.
They have to refund all those ticket sales. So as a financial point of view, you went from having an 8,000 person crowd to a 4,000 person crowd. I didn't see why a postponement wouldn't have been the worst thing in the world. Wait a month for it? Okay, fair enough.
Well, it's not that easy to postpone these days, though. You got to think the networks, main event.
Bullshit. Bill's doing it every 5 seconds.
Yeah, but and also with Tszyu, as we talked about, title aspirations. He's on a timeline. The WBO is not going to wait for him for too much longer. As we talked about, the Russian may not wait for him too much longer. It's complex, but at the same time, it's hard for me not to think that, well, Zerafa and his team should have, thought like, well, if we get locked down again, this is something that we have to, I don't know. I understand it, but no matter how you slice it, this is going to fall on him because, other promoters and other fighters are going to be like, yo, he pulled out a week before a pay-per-view.
The most major pay-per-view in the country that everyone's been waiting a very long time. It's going, which they enticed, by the way. Remember, Tszyu had no interest in that fight until that $1 million offer came along.
And Zerafa's team. So can you go into more detail about that? Briefly about how Zerafa's team is the one who pretty much lobbied and put the money up for this fight.
Well, they did. Brian Amachuda from Big Time Boxing,
the promoter of
Zerafa's team. Yeah, promotes Zerafa, put up the $1 million offer on Easter weekend. Tszyu said, yep. Well, obviously they took the deal after Tszyu said for a long amount of time he had zero interest in fighting Zerafa, and really the fight made zero sense considering one campaigning at middleweight, one's campaigning at super welterweight, and Mick is not ranked at 154 and has no names on his resume of what's the word I'm looking for, of interest at 154. He fought Kell Brook, but he lost.
Yeah.
So, why would he fight? Bar a bragging rights fight, this fight is really, it's really nothing. It's just a bragging rights domestic money fight. So, Mick had a lot to gain from winning a fight. Tim had nothing to gain. So, you can see why that they've got the get out of jail free card. They're taking it. They're running with it. So,
Yeah, because now they
Yeah,
have no reason to fight Mick Zerafa, or they'll say, well, look, you pulled out, we were here and you weren't. They can say that. They can say you pulled out of a pay-per-view the week, before. Your team
yeah,
guaranteed, us, that, you would fight us and give us this money. You didn't. You let the crowd down. You let the fans down. So they have so many ways they can hit Zerafa with, what reasons why they, won't fight him and keep
oh,
fighting guys like
exactly. I
Steve
mean,
Spark.
yeah, and Steve Spark is a very late replacement, and a blown up super lightweight. So if that fight
Yeah.
lasts more than rounds, I'll be very surprised. But yeah, I mean, Team Zoo will be going, oh well, we were just handed a golden opportunity here because now Tim Zoo gets to fight yet another. No disrespect to Sparksy, and he was impressed with what he did against Jack Brubaker, but he's never fought at 150. Has he ever fought 154? No. Yeah.
No, he's never. Jack Brubaker was his. No, excuse me. He had his first fight above the 140-pound limit, or even fighting a fighter above 140, was in November of 2020 against a Karen Cronin. So he's never he hasn't been above 140 in more than in a year yet. And now he's
Yeah,
at
but he's never fought
154.
at 154.
Put it this way, in July of last year, July 11th of last year, he fought at 140 pounds. He weighed in at 139 and three quarters.
Yeah, he
Just
was a
a
blown up
year
super
ago.
lightweight. Yeah, fighting Jack Brubaker. Now he's going to be a blown up welterweight fighting Tim Tszyu. Yeah. Okay.
So no telling, he's probably going to be coming into the ring at his walk around weight. You know,
Most likely.
crazy. And
Most
then,
likely.
and yeah, that's a very, very light replacement. I don't,
Yeah.
but it is what it is. The interest in this has gone down tremendously. From me, of course, I'm going to be here covering. But don't expect me to be putting, too much effort as if this was the huge pay-per-view that it was just yesterday. This is not disrespect to Steve Spark, but I'm sure everyone is just as gutted as me, especially for the American hardcore boxing fans, and I'm going to use the term of endearment as I call you the degenerate fans that would be up so early in the morning, they'll watch this fight on ESPN Plus, the ones that are going to be taking their kids to summer camp, maybe, you got the job or you don't get off, until 8, 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. You want to watch a fight while you're at work. This is disappointing to us hardcore boxing fans. What's the appeal? I mean, what's going on with the fans over there right now from social media in regards to the fight being canceled? You were telling me Mick is getting pretty much majority of the blame. They're pissed.
Oh shit! Yeah, Mick is getting slaughtered in social media.
Yeah, Billy Dib had something to say, and
Billy Dib
I'm
had something to say. Yeah. Billy Dib said that this is going to, pretty much do his career absolutely no favors. And it's not. It's not. And I mean, it's really, really disappointing because after the initial, I thought to myself, oh no, this can't be fucking true. No, Mick, why'd you pull out? No, this is good. This guy, because I wanted Mick to beat Tszyu so bad. We'll do this. I mean, that's on the record. I wanted Mick to win. I said that Tim would win in a very close split decision fight, but that's all because now this Australian boxing has had two hard hits this week. First, Justice pulls out of the bloody Olympics.
Yeah.
And don't get me started on that, otherwise we'll be here for another half hour randomly going off my fucking brain. And now Mick's pulled out of this. So, yeah, this is.
And we put a lot of time into this fight. A lot of time on our end, as media and YouTubers. We put a lot of time in on this,
And I mean, there have been half a dozen other videos of people, but no one puts the effort into this that we do.
Yeah, but remember, we've been building this up even during Tim Tszyu's fights, and Mick Zerafa's fights. So we've been, talking about these. We've put in, hours and, of getting content out, and we've been seeing the rise in interest of our content and the interest in the fight, and just for it to fall flat like that is very discouraging.
It is very discouraging, but thank you to all those people that have actually acknowledged that we are putting in such effort and leaving it in the comments. We really appreciate that. Good on you guys. Keep it coming. But I've got to say, there's kudos to Sparkies for having Steven Spark to have the balls to jump in with Tszyu, probably knowing that he's going to cop a good hiding. Good on him. I mean, that's the Queensland attitude. Fuck it, you got to have a go anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, people have been saying that he's going to give Tszyu a tougher fight than what Zerafa is. I'll be like, okay, that's
okay. I mean, he's the guy's still 140 pounds. I mean, maybe he may go in there, scrappy and aggressive, but that's just probably going to lead to an early KO. As you said, about round 3 or so, because of the size and the power. And we've seen what Tszyu can do to you to the body.
Oh, Steve Sparks is no scrub. He'll get in there and give him a good crack. But yeah, I mean, has he been training? I mean, he only fought on the last Tszyu card, so he was on the last Tszyu card. So, what's he been doing for the last few months? So,
yeah.
But,
well, according to BoxRec, he had a fight scheduled for July the 24th. So,
okay, cool.
So he must have been doing something, but nonetheless, the size is still, he's still,
the size, yeah.
A 140 pounder. A year ago today, he was fighting and competing at 140 pounds.
And now he's going up against a well-established 154. But he's got some balls. Kudos to Steve. You got to give Steve the respect and love in the world. So good on him.
Well, I'm pretty sure now that they already picked it up, they're not going to cancel it on ESPN Plus. So I'm going to
that was my question. Were they going to pull it, or would there be some commitment? Because as they say, cards subject to change. They always say that little asterisk on the bloody.
Let me see. I'm checking ESPN Plus right now, and right now it's still listed, but it's listed as Tszyu versus Mick Zerafa. So it's still listed on there. They haven't pulled it yet, but remember also ESPN hasn't officially announced it yet.
Well, that could be interesting.
Because normally you would see the fights pop up and then we would get a press release. This is for every fight. Top Rank is responsible for every boxing event on ESPN Plus. So you always get a email press release of when they pick up a fight, usually the week of the fight or even sometimes as late as a couple of days before. So once I saw this, I was searching around on the ESPN Plus desktop for Wilder versus Fury 3 content or Fury versus Wilder 3 content. And I said, oh, wow, they picked up Tszyu versus Mike Zerafa. I kind of figured that somebody would, but I was, hoping it would be ESPN Plus. So then, I was waiting for the press release to come, which would normally come. I said, okay, now that they picked it up, I can expect the press release to come. So now they might pull it. You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
It may be pulled, and it's a shame that you guys over in Australia, still going to be stuck with a $60 pay-per-view tag for a 154-pound highly ranked contender in Tszyu versus a 140-pound fighter who's not even ranked anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the pay-per-views aren't worth $60 to start with, so let's not get into that. I mean,
Yeah.
When Fury Wilder $250, they can't justify a $60 price tag. Never have, never will, unless it's a unification bout between two Aussie champions.
And then they expect for you guys to pay for UFC next week. This pay-per-view is going to flop so bad.
Well, there's already been a lot of people who have already bought it. So would they be demanding refunds? Don't know how that works. Not going to get into it, but that would be an interesting.
You can. You can get the refunds. You definitely can. They're going to be hit with a lot of refunds very, very soon. So all around the board, this is a bad look for Mick Zerafa. Like, I understand, but if I'm the manager or promoter, I'm like, yo, this is is the risk worth it? Now the team, yes, they have lives. You can't guarantee that you're going to take care of the team if they get stuck, in there and their personal lives are falling apart because they're quarantined for God knows how long. However, but in this case, they should have went there. I'm sorry, that's where I'm at with it. I can understand, but it's too much risk. For that,
exactly.
long term to Mick Zerafa's career, where fighters are not going to want to fight him, and they're going to have a reason like, yo, you pulled out of a pay-per-view the week before, and that word of mouth amongst promoters and managers, that shit travels around. And it doesn't help that his team was the ones that lobbied and from my understanding, put the money up for this fight, correct?
Exactly. They're the ones that put it up.
So, this is it's another fishy situation in boxing.
Absolutely.
Closing
And
thoughts?
the big man,
Yeah, closing thoughts?
another example of Australian boxing shooting itself in the foot and the fans suffer. That is probably the bottom line of this. So at the end of the day, Australian boxing suffers. Not just, everyone suffers. Main event suffers. The fans suffer. The fighters suffer. Pretty much everyone suffers. No one's going to benefit from this.
Yeah.
Not even Team Zoo. Because people are going to be like, oh, what, they got a blown up super lightweight they're replacing? Okay, righto.
Yeah.
That looks bad for Team Zoo as well. But,
Yeah, it was one of the marquee fights of the month of July. It would have been trending very high on YouTube. I do know that for sure. And now it's just gone.
Yeah, it's just gone. It's been a bad couple of weeks for Australian boxing.
Yeah, well, we can look forward to the second half. I don't know what the second half's going to bring, but if Tim Tszyu, Paul Gallen, and Justice Hooney are supposed to be the faces, and of course you got the Maloneys, it's right now it's looking like it's going to be on the Maloneys and Tim Tszyu to get his title shot before the end of the year, hopefully, to try to,
Well, don't forget about Georgie.
Oh yeah, George Kambosos. Yeah, definitely. So right now, Australian boxing, with the way things are setting up, it's not looking like a good year. And if Tim Tszyu gets his title shot, and loses, right now Australian boxing future is not looking good, man. Especially like with the things that have been going on with Justice Hooney, Tim Tszyu. Once he gets his title shot, what's going to happen to him? What if Maloney cleanly loses to Franco this time? What if George Kambosos gets sparked out?
What if Jason loses, Maloney loses his next fight, whomever that'll be against?
Yeah.
I have no doubt Andrew will flog Franco again. He'll become a two-time champion. Don't worry about that. Andrew's got Franco's number. We'll talk about that later. But
right now it's on him, George, and Tim the next 6 months to really, really,
don't forget about Ebony's next fight. And Susie Q might have another fight coming up, so stay tuned for that.
The two that are carrying the women's, and there's a few other women as well. But all right, since we're running short on, so we're running short on time. This is TstreeT Controversy and Big J with 5v3cc.com. Take your time out, like the video, and subscribe. And if there is a final press conference, which I'm pretty sure they're still going to broadcast it, we're still going to stream it because I'm interested to see what Tim Tszyu and his team has to say. Please subscribe, take your time out, like the video, TstreeT Controversy, and Big J with 5v3cc.com.